G'day and welcome to another Blender Guru tutorial. I'm Andrew Price, and in this video you're going to learn how to make the elusive fire. Something that a lot of you have been asking. I'm very excited about this tutorial because it's revisiting one that I did many years ago, which was when you had to use the Blender internal engine. Smoke was pretty but we've come a long way now. Cycles now supports fire and smoke rendering. The smoke simulator's got a whole bunch of improvements added, and so you can get some really cool looking results. So I've spent the last couple of days going through the smoke simulator and like tweaking every little setting, trying to figure out how it all works and how to get the best looking fire that you can. So I'm going to be sharing with you everything that I learned then. We're going to be making a roaring fire that you can see right here. The scene around it that you can see, the forest scene with the grassy meadows, I'm going to cover that in the next tutorial. We're going to be using something called the Grass Essentials Pack to create that beautiful looking grass across the floor there. But for this tutorial, we're going to focus entirely on the fire. So this is the scene. This is what we are going to be making. So by the end of this video, you'll have this roaring little beauty, this little cool little campfire. So we'll be, of course, you'll be discovering what all of these crazy settings in here mean. It looks very intimidating, but it's pretty easy once you figure it out. We'll also be adding in some embers, so getting a particle system to interact with the smoke simulator, which is really cool. Something that took me ages to figure out. And yeah, basically just tweaking all the little things in order to get some nice realistic looking fire and rendering it in cycles. So without further ado, let's go ahead and open up a new scene in Blender. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a really super basic smoke simulation and getting it rendering in cycles, so you guys can get that result finished, and then we're going to start tweaking it to make it look more and more like realistic fire. So with this default cube here, we're going to go ahead and delete that, and we're going to replace it with a circle. And this circle is going to become the emitter, like the actual flame for the fire. So it needs to have a face, important. So in the toolbar, just enable Ngon. Now it's got a face, that's good. And now this is the really cool part. Creating smoke, you know, yonks ago in Blender used to be a nightmare because there was so many things to do. Now you can do this. Object, quick effects, quick smoke. Now if you hit Alt-A, look at this. Boom. Smoke already. So yeah, this was added by Micah, a developer, I think 2 years ago. He realized, you know, how many settings had to be, you know, changed before you could get something basic like smoke. And so he's enabled, yeah, like this quick smoke effect. And what that's done is it's added in, you know, all the things here for basic smoke. It's made this circle the flame emitter, or the smoke emitter at the moment. And as well as that, if you go to the node editor, look at this. He's actually already added in the basic node setup in order to render smoke. So if you render right now, you might not see anything. And the reason for that is that currently, as of 2.73, January 2015, you can't render smoke on your GPU, unfortunately. You can only render it on your CPU. So if you can't see anything, switch to CPU. But if you can, try and stick to GPU. In the future, I'm sure it will change. Anyways, so there we go. We've got some basic smoke set up. But it's not a fire, is it? Not even close. It's very thick and black. So what we want to do is go back to our little box over here and select this circle. So this is the emitter, the smoke emitter. Now, if you go to the effects settings over here, you can see that you've got underneath flow source, flow type, you've got what says smoke. Now that used to be the only one, like for the smoke simulator, you could only have smoke. And then you had to like do a lot of tweaking in the material nodes in order to make it fire. Now you've actually got something there called fire, which you can click. Now it's kind of confusing because you'll also be, you know, tempted to click on fire and smoke because you're thinking like, I want fire, but I want that fire to emit smoke, right? So you're thinking fire and smoke is the one I want. But actually it's misleading. What that's actually going to do, if you click fire and smoke, it's going to create kind of a fire emitter and then a smoke emitter. So it's doing both at the same time, which is weird. Fire, if you just select fire, it will actually
make fire as well as smoke. So I don't know why. I mean, yeah, you should always just select fire because you only want fire. All right. Now, if we reanimate that, look at that. You can see we have some fire. Ta-da! Little mushroom cloud going on. This would be really great for like a nuke tutorial or something. Okay, so fire's in the 3D viewport. If we hit render, no fire. What a shame. So why is there no fire? The reason for that is that this quick effects, quick smoke, it's given us a very basic smoke node setup just for smoke. If we want to have fire in there, we have to do some tweaking. And it's actually fairly easy to do. Once you get the hang of it, it can be a little bit daunting at first, but yeah, I'm here to walk you through it. So what we've got in here is, this is the smoke, and you can see we've got these two nodes here called attribute nodes, and they've got names. One says color, one says density. So somewhere in the smoke voxel data, wherever it is, I mean, it's basically magic to me. I don't know where it stores it all. It's an occasion, it's voxel, whatever. But somewhere in there is something called density, and that's what this attribute node here is referencing when it says density, right? And so you can then use that data. What we want to do is add another attribute node, and we want this attribute node to reference flame. Now it needs to say flame exactly as I've typed it there, flame. And when you do that, it's now going to reference the part of that voxel data, the smoke simulation, which is the flame. Okay, so it has to be typed out exactly like that, all right? So once we've done that, we can now define what the flame is going to look like. So what we want to add is a color ramp node, one of the most popular, heavily used nodes. I use it all the time, love it. You can use it for so many things. The color ramp node, if we connect the output of this factor from this attribute node into the color ramp input, what this is going to do is allow us to, change the color of the real fire. So for reference, this is what real fire looks like. I can't, by the way, provide this video file for you because it was a paid stock footage that I had to pay for, so I can't provide it, but you can see it here, okay? This is what it looks like. So at the brightest point of the flame, that's when it is white. It then, as it's decreasing in heat a little bit, it becomes a bright white yellow color. Then it becomes an orangey color, and then towards like the edges, it becomes like this reddish color, this reddish tint, which is why when you're all sitting around a fire, everyone has this sort of reddish glow to everything, right? So that's what you want to put into the color ramp node. So on this color ramp node here, this part here on the right-hand side, that is what is going to be the color of the hottest part of the fire, which at its current state, white is exactly what we want. And at the lowest part over here, the black part, the left side, that is what the fire is going to be at its coldest point. So that's actually correct as well. So what we want to do is in between these two is we want to add in a few different colors. So first of all, right near the white one, because it's only white for a tiny little brief point before it's yellow, okay? So we want to add in here, this point here, we want to make this a bright whitish yellow color like that. Then over here, we want to add in a orangey red color like that. And then I want to drag this black point, this anchor, right up close to this orange point. And the reason that I'm doing that is that I've noticed from looking at reference footage is that the fire is there for like an instant and then disappears. Like towards the edge, like once it's cooled off, that flame like disappears in an instant. Like the top of that flame right there, like watch it go. Boom. Just poof, just vanishes. So if you had this dragged out over here, what that's gonna do is it's kind of gonna fade out. So your fire will have this sort of like flowy, soft look to it. It doesn't look real. You want it to look like aggressive, chunky, like it's there and then it's gone. The fire is quick. So that's what bringing this black value in will do, like next to the orange one. It's like there's no grace period. It's there and then it's gone instantly, all right? So that's what you can do. Now you can tweak these later. I'm not showing you like the exact, the hex data. You don't have to copy that. Like it's just getting the basics right. The white, the yellow, the orange, and then you just want to play with that and just look at reference video and just try and get it as close as you can. All right. But this is all you need in order to get some fire going. Then what we want to do is we have to add this to the rest of the node setup. And because this is a flame, it's actually emitting light. Yeah, duh, everyone knows that. The olden days, you know, they walked around with a candle and a lantern. Why? Because it's emitting light. That was their light source, right? So we wanted to emit light. So actually in the rest of the scene, everything that's around the flame actually has light on it. So the way you do that is by adding in an emission shader node. So we drag the color output from this color amp node into the color input of the emission. And then we take the output of this emission shader. And look at that. We have an empty add shader node there where it's conveniently, there's a bottom input which is left open for us. So it's almost like they knew that we were going to have to add in the flame here. So they wanted to give us some, room to do that, already set up to go. So that's what we need to do. Now, one final thing is the strength of the flame. We can actually take the data from the flame and tell it that the hot parts we want to be brighter than the colder parts, like a real flame. So the way we do that is we take the factor output and we put that into the strength input of that emission shader. But actually what that will do is that'll just give us like sort of a bland, like low light looking flame, and we can't really adjust that. What we can do though is if we add in a math node, we can take the output from this factor input, put that into the top input of the math node, and then if we set this to, there it is, multiply, we can multiply the original value to be whatever we want. So if we take this output here and then put that into the strength input, this value here now becomes the strength of the fire, like the brightness of the fire. So if we set this to 20, that's going to give us like some really nice looking fire. 20 I found works well for most cases. Some instances, if you want it to like light up things even more and it's like a smaller sort of flame, 40, anywhere from 20 to 40, any of those values is going to work for you. Just like I said, tweak it for your scene. Like these values that I'm giving you here, it's not set in mud. When you're watching a tutorial, you might think like it has to be exact, but like adjust it. If it looks a little funny in your scene, feel free to adjust things. So these are just the base ones. 20 to 40, anything around there is going to look great. So now that I've said all that, let's get this camera, position it front and center to our flame here. And I'm just going to change this resolution size so that it's square, not widescreen. Good. And now let's give this a save before we try and render it. And let me just adjust the tile size because I'm rendering on CPU. Unfortunately, I have to use small tiles. But look at that. We now have the flame rendering. So it's no longer just that dark smoke. We have the flame actually appearing in the render. So that's it. That's the end of the, no, it's not the end of the tutorial because it looks horrible at the moment. But this is, if you wanted to, continue on here, you just wanted to learn how to render the fire, that's how it's done. You set up those things, you're good to go. Now what we're going to do is make this fire not look so crappy because at the moment that looks horrible. That looks like, I don't know. I don't know what it looks like. A marshmallow that's on fire. It's really, it's the worst. So, we're going to be tweaking some of these smoke values here. We're going to go through here. And we're also going to be adjusting this emitter. I'm going to show you a little trick in order to make that look more realistic. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So if you've never used the smoke simulation before, basically the one value you're always going to be changing is the divisions. And that's, as it says, the resolution of the smoke. So if we increase this to 64, what you'll see is that the smoke looks a lot tighter. There's a lot more detail in it. But you can also see it's taking a lot longer to bake. And that's really the perfect description of the resolution setting. It's, nicer, but just takes longer. So for the most part, like whilst you're testing out settings, just keep it at 32. You can gauge the basic behavior of the smoke, just keeping it at 32. There's no problem with that. So we'll leave it at that for now. My final one that I did, by the way, I used 128, which is fairly low and it still looks fine. 256, you might want to go that. I once went to 512, but that's just getting crazy. And that's when really you want to take a week off from your computer so you can do the baking. Anyways, so leaving it at 32. Now we'll come back to smoke flames because the first thing I want to do is I want to turn on smoke adaptive domain. So what does that do, you might be asking? when I hit Alt A there, you can see that there is now like a cube within a cube. Like you can see there's this cube there, and then there's the actual cube. So this actual cube, that's the domain, which is like the box in which the smoke is going to be calculated. Now, it used to be in Blender, like you had to try and make that box as small as physically possible, because the bigger the box is, the more it would have to bake inside. So, you know, the longer the bake times are. By having smoke adaptive domain, what it's doing is it's automatically figuring out the correct size of that domain cube. So you don't have to figure it out. So you can see here, like as the smoke is small, the box itself is small. And then as it gets bigger, the size of this domain gets bigger. And that's the idea of it. So by default, I mean, I just think this should always be on. I can't really imagine a situation where you'd want it off. Just leave it always on, and you're always going to have faster bake times. So just leave that on. The next one is the smoke high resolution settings. So what this does is, if I bake this, you'll automatically see the result. It looks a lot more detailed. So like the description says, it's giving us a higher resolution look to the smoke. How it's actually working is it's taking this division, you know, the resolution of your smoke, it's treating that kind of like the blob or the cage of the smoke, and then this high resolution setting there is then adding like fractal noise to that smoke, to like on the outside like a cage, so that it looks more detailed on the outside. So the main sort of behavior of the smoke and everything, that's changed in the divisions there, but this high resolution divisions, that's going to give you the stuff that's going to make it look awesome. So any, you know, final bake that you do, you should definitely be using high resolution. You know, at the most, I've probably ever used 3. That's probably like max, and that's overkill. Generally 2, and even 1, I think for my final bake that I did for my animation was actually just, yeah, it was division 1. It'll increase the bake times crazy, just going from 1 to 2. Even, yeah, at 1, it's increased it a lot. So keep that in mind, but we can leave it at 1, and it's still, you know, it's baking fairly quickly right now, which is good. The other one that you want to change in this area is the noise method. Now, when you click the noise method, you can see you've got 2 values here, FFT and wavelet, both of which are equally as confusing and pointless to artists, because that says nothing to us. We've got no idea what either of those mean. There's no clues. It's a guessing game. FFT or wavelet. Now, I'm sure like way back, you know, 10 years ago, whoever developed the original algorithm, maybe his initials were FFT, so he called it that. Or I don't know where these names come from, but they're not helpful to artists, and so you kind of have to guess. Well, I did some tests myself using the reference video, and where'd that reference video go? Yeah, I did some tests with the reference video, and I had a look at, you know, the different ones, and I found that personally, wavelet gives you the closest looking, you know, fractal noise, like the detail on the outside of the fire, which matches real reference fire. So you can leave it at wavelet. Other people suggest FFT. In fact, even my first tutorial, I suggested that. I've changed. It's wavelet. That's the one. That's what I think produces superior results. The strength of the noise, that's important. You want to go high, because from basically just as a rule, the smoke that is, you know, generated by the smoke simulator, it looks too smooth. It looks like, I don't know, like a blobby fluid than an actual, you know, smoke. So you want to increase this noise that's on the outside to be higher resolution and like more noise, so that it looks more like real fire, because real fire is just crazy. It's all sorts of stuff going on, as you just saw in the video. So yeah, so increase that to 5, and you can see you've already got like really like a lot better looking fire just by enabling high resolution and strength of 5. The rest of it, the cache, this is important when you do your final bake. You're going to click that bake button right there, and then it's going to go through and bake everything. What you want to do though is you want to first of all make sure that you have actually saved your blend file somewhere. This is important, because if you don't do that, you can't do this next part. Then once you've done that, you want to give this a name. Any name, doesn't really matter, because I found if you don't give this a name, sometimes you'll close Blender and then you'll reopen the old file and all your cache is gone. Like, I don't know where it went. It just vanished into the Blender sphere or whatever. It's gone. and that's a real shame. So you want to make sure that it's saved. So calling it something, I think, saves it into a separate folder. In fact, let me check this. Oh, we'll probably have to bake it actually first, but you do the baking. Let me just check this now on my separate monitor here. You guys can't see what's going on. I don't want to show you the contents of my hard drive, but I do want to be able to tell you if this is actually correct. Tutorial cache, blend cache. Okay, so it's putting it in a blend cache. Either way, giving it a name just makes sure that it doesn't like vanish, all right, which is it's pretty important. So anyways, now the end frame of your bake, that's important. If you just leave it at the default value of 250, that's an animation that's 10 seconds long, which is way longer than what you need to be able to tell if the smoke is looking good, right? So just leave it at a bake of 100. If you're going to do a longer animation, obviously adjust that, because yeah, basically 25 frames per second, 250 frames, that's 10 seconds. So change that depending on how long you want your animation. 100 frames is going to give us a 4-second animation. All right, how's that little math class for this tutorial? All right, now for the smoke flames, this is the settings that can kind of matter a lot. First of all, I'll just address something here. The emitter, this circle here, it's almost, I don't know, it's like 20% under, like the stuff underneath here, we don't need that. Like the smoke is going in this direction. So this box here should be moved upwards so that we're making full use of the domain, the domain size. You don't want to have it so that it's like resting like right on its edge, or else you'll have problems. But you know, that distance from it is a little bit better than what it was before. So now that it has more room for the smoke to rise, okay? So now that I've done that, let's go back to what I was just talking about, smoke flames, all right? So you've got something here that says reaction, speed, the speed of the burning reaction. And you think like, oh, that must change like how fast the flames move. Wrong. Actually, what this does is it changes how much of the smoke is actually going to be fire. This name makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't know why it's called speed, a reaction speed. It should be called flame height. That would make more sense for artists, but it is what it is. I'm sure it's, I don't know, scientifically, the speed of reaction is why it's given that value. Anyways, so the lower you set this to, like just make a mental note of how this fire looks like there, like the percentage of how that looks there. And that's at 0.75. If we set this to 0.3, watch this now. The flame will become bigger. It'll eat up more of the actual smoke. So more of that smoke is now fire. Like the actual, like the behavior of it has not changed at all. Just the parts that are smoke and the parts that are fire, they've altered their percentage, like their ratio, if that makes sense. So lowering that will increase the size of your flames. Now this looks crazy big at the moment, but once we increase the divisions and also do the next step, which is really important, adding in the stuff that makes the flame emitter actually look like a real fire instead of like a blowtorch like it does at the moment, this is going to look a lot more, you know, sizable, like the right size. Now, the other one you want to change is the smoke amount, the amount of smoke which is generated by the burning fuel, essentially the smoke that comes with the fire. So if we increase that from 1 to 4, we will get 4 times the amount of smoke with that fire. And I found personally, the more fire is going to help you, especially for a nighttime camping sort of scene, because you want to be able to have, you know, in the render, you want to be able to see some smoke above it. And leaving it at 1, especially at higher resolution values, the smoke is sort of wispy and it's barely there. So you want to crank that up so we get some more, you know, plumes of smoke pumping through there. At the moment, it looks more like a bit of an oil fire, some sort of rig caught on fire, but it'll look better later on. The other one you can change, although it's optional, you can change the maximum temperature of the flames. I increase it to 3 so that, you know, parts of the flame can be a little bit hotter. That makes a minimal difference. Vorticity as well, surprisingly doesn't make that much difference here, but you can increase it slightly if you want. However, up here, underneath behavior of the smoke, increase that as high as you can, go 4, and that's going to make the flame and the fire just look a lot more choppy, like it's like the turbulence of it is going to be increased, because that's often what we're battling when it comes to making the smoke and fire in Blender, is just trying to make it look as choppy as real fire, which is this sort of chaotic scrambled mess of everything. But, computers being perfect, it often is just too smooth and lovely, which is not what we want. We want it to look real. So just to recap, all the values I've changed. Vorticity, set that to 4. Smoke flames, reduce it to 0.3 to give us bigger flames. Smoke, increase it to 4, so we get 4 times the amount of smoke with it. You can increase the temperature to 3 if you want, and the vorticity to 1 if you want. It's not going to change that much, but it'll give you a little bit, more interesting flames. Debatable. And then the smoke adaptive domain, that should be by, default, it should be on already. I don't know why it's off, but just leave that on. And then the smoke high resolution, divisions 1, and then leave the noise method as wavelet, not FFT, and the strength, set that to 5. So, yeah, it's coming along great. Great so far. But let's talk about this problem that we have with our emitter. It looks like a blowtorch. Or, if we were to sort of, hang on, if I can position the camera so we're looking at it. How do you make it look sideways? I want it to look like go left to right. If this was like sideways, this would be great at the back of a F1 jet, Real fire is not like this. Like if you've got a campfire thing like that, unless it's filled, to the brim with petrol, and even then it wouldn't be the same. Like it's always flickering. Real fire is like hot in a place, and then it's cold, and then it's hot, and then it's cold, and it's like patchy, so it flickers over the surface, and that's what gives you this realistic fire. Like this wood here, it's not just one piece of wood that's constantly burning. Parts of it are burning, and the sap of that will release some energy, and then that part will blow, and then that part will be cool, but then it will get hotter, and then that part will go, and that's what gives you this little choppy, tiny little flames. And that was the part that I was always annoyed with smoke and fire in Blender. It was it's just a constant big chunky flame, and that's why it looks so fake. So, and I learned this from another YouTuber, and I'm sure maybe he learned it from somebody else as well. But this is how you can do it, really easy, really cool. Underneath, if you select your emitter, which is this circle, check use texture. And then from here in the drop down, you're gonna have to select a texture, and by default, there's just one there called text. Might as well use it. With that texture, we want to define how that texture looks. So this is the texture that's going to define which parts of this plane here is going to be the parts that's going to emit the fire. So in the texture panel, let's go and select from the drop down the name of that texture, which is text. And then the type, we can select what type of texture it is. So we're going to use clouds, of course, because that's what we always use with the texture. It's the most used texture. I reckon if you go through every blend file ever made, 95% of procedural textures have got to be clouds. They're just so useful. Anyways, we're going to change the size of this, the size of this noise, so that it is tiny little bits. If you make this bigger, then you're going to have big wafting parts coming off the flame, which can be good if you want to make the look of a, I don't know, controlled burn with fuel or something like that. But we want it to look like flickering wood, so we're going to go for a smaller noise size. We also want to increase the contrast of this to 2. So we've got some real cold parts and some real hot parts. We're just sort of amplifying its the influence of that, and reducing the brightness as well. So now it's sort of 50-50. Part of it will be flame, part of it will be, you know what I mean? Part of it will be flame, part of it will not be flame. Gosh. So now let's have a look at this. Ooh. So it's no longer one solid flame. It's an actual fire. Look at that. It's one simple little change. Is all it takes to make it start looking like a real fire. Awesome, right? That's just, it infinitely, automatically looks way better. But trouble is, though, is that now we have kind of the same problem before. There's parts of it which are constantly burning, right? It's not really flickering. It looks better because it's, choppy now. It's got some different heights to it, but it's not flickering. So what we want to do is we actually want to animate that texture so that the parts that are hot and cold, they change constantly. Okay, so this is how you do it. Let's load up a timeline if you haven't already got that up. Let's set the end frame of our animation to 100 because that's what we're going to bake to as well. Go to frame 1, and this is how you normally add a keyframe in Blender as well for anything. You want to change the color of something, you want to change the movement, you use I, right? Set a keyframe for whatever. You can do that for values. A lot of people don't know that you can do that, but you can. Hover over this offset value there. That's like the position of the texture in its texture space, right? If you hit I over that, that value it goes yellow, meaning there's now a keyframe. So now if we go to the end of our animation, frame 100, let's increase this offset to 4. The higher you set that to, the more it's going to change, the more it's going to flicker around. So I'm using, offset 4 for a 100 frame animation. If you wanted to go for sort of slower, more wafty burns, you can use a lower value. You get the point. So this just controls how much flickering you want. So again, hover over it and hit I, so it should be yellow on both the start and the end frame of your animation. So 0 to 4 in 100 frames. Let's give this a little render now and see how this guy looks. And look at that. You can see, even though it's low resolution, it's flickering. So there's parts of it that are on, and then it's off, then it's on, then it's off. And we're now getting some really awesome looking fire. It's actually starting to look like real fire should, which is exciting, right? It's cool. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bake this thing. Let's go to 64 resolution, which is sort of half of what the final one would be. And let's give this a bake. So we've named the cache. We've, put in 100 frames for the baking. Let's go ahead, hit bake. I'll pause my recording whilst it's doing that, and then we'll see how it looks. All right. Well, I just had lunch in that time gap there, which is unnecessary. I mean, it really only took a few minutes to bake, but check it out. Look at this. That looks like actual fire, like something is burning. Look at it. It's got all the right flames in the right places. The smokes, it looks great. It looks like actual smoke. And if you actually render it, let's give this a little render here. It actually renders the flames like it should, the smoke like it should, and is pretty much ready to go. So you might be thinking like, all right, print, done. Fire is completed, but you'd be wrong, or you'd be missing out on an extra step that could make it look even cooler. So, looking at our reference fire, let me do the school teacher thing. What is missing from our fire that this fire has, other than the wood, of course? All right, it's embers. All right, I'll spoil the surprise for you. Embers, those little tiny burning little particles that go. I'm assuming it's wood off the actual logs and stuff, like little tiny flecks that catch a light and they get caught in the heat and they fly through the air. That's what we're missing. And for the longest time, that used to be really hard to make in Blender, because you would have to fake it using particles and then try and match the particle speed to match the smoke. And it never looked right. It always looked like, because it has to be affected by the heat of it. Like these embers, like no single one of them burns exactly the same as the one before it. Like they're all just, some of them are drifting. Ones that get caught into the main thermals, they go really fast, So it's important that it looks right. And thankfully, there is a feature in Blender, which was added a couple of years ago, breaking news, right? That allows you to have the smoke system affect other objects, such as particles. And so I was really psyched to try this out. And then I added in the particles and I waited and nothing happened. And I went online to try and find out how to do this feature that was added, because I figured everybody would be talking about it. And there was almost no help. Nobody was explaining it. So I'm going to do it now. So it's out there, an official documentation. So first things first, adding the particles. The particles have to be emitted from the flame here. So just simply add in a particle system right here. And if you just, animate that, you just have them dropping out of the bottom there like that, which is not ideal. And you can see that obviously they're not being affected by the smoke at all. I had hoped that when you just, add them, that it would just work magically. It would just figure out that it's in a smoke thing and just up it goes. But it doesn't. What you need to do in order to have the smoke affect other things is you need to add in force field, smoke flow. It's got a little smoking pipe next to it, appropriate. So you add in this object, which is this empty, and I don't think it matters where you place this in your scene actually, but it might. It needs to be on the same layer as your smoke domain and everything else. But provided it is there, what you do is you go to the physics panel, and then underneath domain object, you need to select the smoke domain, which is yeah, this guy right here called smoke domain. So that one's really hard. So you just select that and then watch this. They're still dropping out of the bottom because they have a lot of gravity on them. So let's take this particle system down a peg by dropping the gravity, okay? So now when we do that, watch this. Whoa, oh, hey! And it's getting caught up in the smoke. Now, one thing you want to check is that your particles are moving at the same speed as the smoke. Because here, I think that the smoke is moving a lot faster than the particles. So what I'm going to do is increase the strength of this smoke flow to 5. And you can see when you do that, that they're moving a lot faster now. And it looks a lot cooler as well. So that's basically it. I mean, you don't have to rebake the smoke or anything like that. It'll basically just figure itself out. And up and away it goes. I mean, it really is pretty cool, actually. So, we've got that. We've got the embers. They are behaving exactly the way they should. Now we need to get them to show up in the render. Because at the moment, this is just, it's dots on a screen which we're able to view in the viewport. But for Cycles to render it, it has to be like a physical, tangible thing that it can render. And this is just a point data, right? That's how I understand it. So what we need to do is add in an object which is going to become each one of those particles. It's going to render each of them. So we're going to use a UV sphere, and these are going to be tiny, like tiny little dots. So we want this sphere to be really low poly. So I'm going to use, let's try 5 segments, 4 rings. Yeah, 4 rings. Basically super low poly like that, just enough that it's going to actually be like rendered as a little dot on the screen. And then once we've got that, just move it out of frame of the camera, but just so that you can access it, I don't know, hit it easily. Once we've done that, then select the particle system again, and then down here underneath render, select object, and then just select the sphere. And there you go. So these are now the individual little spheres. They're way too big at the moment, so let's just turn down the size to 0.02. Is still too big, but just so that we can see it in the next step, we'll just leave it at that size for now. Now, this will, the default, basically whatever material that you give this, that's the material that these particles are going to adhere to. So if you want to add any material to these embers, you have to do it to this sphere. Some of you, I'm sure, already know all this, but I'm just explaining it for those who don't. So we need to give it a new material to this sphere. And this material is actually a little bit advanced. Like, it's obviously, embers are bright, so we can figure out, without too much stress that, yeah, it should be an emission shader. That's a bit of a no-brainer because it's lighting up, right? But the color of it and the brightness of it, that is really important. And that is something, like if we have a look at our reference photo here, I don't know if you can see it too well because they're not that obvious, but as the embers move, like the more they move, the brighter they are. It's like a shooting star. When it's moving and then it's I don't know if the shooting star analogy works, but the more it moves, the brighter it is, and it has a different color. So as it's brighter, it's like white and yellowy color like that, and then as it's slowing down, like it's getting less air, so it's sort of starving itself. Like when you blow on coals and it brightens like that, and then it sort of goes down. That's what these embers are doing. So the more they move, the brighter they should be, the whiter they should be, and then as they slow down, they should be a reddish orangey color, and they should fade away. So that is what we need to do in this material node setup here. And this is where a lot of people will just give up because it just sounds like it's too much work. But it's really cool once you get it set up, and I'll show you how to do it. It's not too much work. I shouldn't have said that. I'll put people off. So what you want to do is you want to add in something here called the particle info node. This particle info node will allow you to take certain things like the age of the particle, its lifetime, its location, a whole bunch of different things, and make it tweak the material according to the particle's behavior, which is exactly what we want to do. So we want to use this velocity output to control the color and the brightness of it. So what we're going to do is add in a color ramp node, just like we did for the flame, and we're going to define what it's going to look like when it's bright and what it's going to look like when it's slowing down, when it's sort of dying away. So the left-hand side, this is when it's dying away, and we're going to make this an orangey color like that. And when it's alive and bright, it is a hot white color like that. Now, what we want to use is the velocity. Now, if we were to plug this straight into there, that is not going to work. It's just, because you can see the output of this is a blue color. I don't know why it has to be blue, but it is. That means that we have to do something to that in order for it to work in this gray input, right? Generally, that you can't, as far as I know, use different colors together. Maybe somebody can correct me there. But anyways, so what we want to do is add in something which, honestly, it's pretty hard to wrap your head around what this actually does, but it's called the vector math node. All right, here we go. Drag in this vector math node, and you want to take the velocity and put that into the top input, and you want to take the velocity and also put it into the bottom input. And then you want to select from this drop-down list dot product. Now, if you can't tell, I have no idea what any of this means. Honestly, it's no idea. I just did a lot of research online and found a few screenshots of this and figured out how to make it work in this example, right? I don't know what dot product does. I don't know why you're using both of them the same thing, but this is the way that you can get this gray input to something that you can actually use. So that's what you do. Somebody, I'm sure, will write in the comments what the dot product, what this is actually doing, because I have no idea. In fact, if you do know, maybe you can help me out. So once we've done that, then, just like what we did before with the, giving the flame a strength, we want to be able to control the strength of this effect. So I'm going to take the value of this and put this into this math node here. By the way, if you didn't see what that was a converter, math node. And then set this to multiply, turn it down to 0.1, put this into the color ramp node, take the output of this color, and then put that into the emission input. Then, if we go back to our scene over here, if we give this a little render now, hopefully, yeah, it's working pretty well. If we go in here, we should be able to see the particles that are closest, that are slowest, which are basically the ones down, in the flames, because they haven't really picked up speed yet. They're an orangey color, and the ones that have got a lot of speed and are sort of rocketing out of there, they're a bright white color. So yeah, so basically, that's all you need to do. But to make it so that it fades out, what we're going to do is use a mix shader node, combine it with a transparency shader node, flip them around, make sure the transparency is in the top input, and then take the output of this multiply node and use that into the mix shader. So if you have no idea what I was talking about then, basically it's making sure that when it is dying, when it has low velocity, it's fading away. It's got a it's got a higher transparency amount. Then as it picks up speed, it starts to use the emission strength, which is 1. We could increase that to 2 actually. That's probably all right. Yeah, and that looks pretty good. So if we look in here, you can see that the ones that have got a low velocity, they're kind of transparent. There's a little bit transparent in there. And that's what you want. So you want them to fade away as they lose their velocity, and that's what we've done. So that's basically it. Let me just pull this back a little bit. Let me see if we can get a more. Oh no! Kill me! Kill me! Ah! That is why you always save your Blender file, people. Always save, because that happens. And now we're back to square one. Okay, 10 minutes pass and we're finally back to where I started before. So that's why you always save your files. Don't make the mistakes I did. So, all right. Good news is though, in that time I was able to fine tune this these little embers to work even better. I increased the strength to 15, which I found sort of gave it more oomph, and then I gave it even more of a push, because the trouble is when it starts off in the smoke, it doesn't have a lot of power behind it. So it starts off slow and then it kind of builds up speed in here when it should really be dying off. So so that's what we're trying to combat. So I also gave it a little bit more of a normal push, which means it's ejected out of there from the start with a little bit of force, which sort of pushes it into the fray a little bit more. And then if you
increase the random lifetime of the particles and also drop the lifetime of them to say 30, you should find that the embers sort of die off where they sort of should, and whew, save it. Okay, because I'm doing a little, all right, please don't crash on me again. Good. All right, so they do start off like a little bit of, like faded away and a little bit orange, and they can sort of build up speed here. It would be ideal if they could sort of decrease in speed as they go up there, and I've tried various ways of doing that, such as giving this a maximum fall off and some power and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't really have much of an effect on it because it basically the particles then never get up into the stream. They sort of fizzle out and die. So you have to have it so the particles sort of die off on their own, but at least we've got it so that when they're moving slow, they're a different color and they're less bright. So at least we've got that going for it, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. So what we'll do now, I just changed that back to strength 2 like it was in the recording, but I forgot to do for the redo. I hate redoing stuff. We also probably want to give it less embers. So let's try, let's go 200 over 100 frames. Like that. And there is a lawnmower outside, so I'm just going to close the window. The tutorial started off so well. Now it's all a shambles. All right, and then down here underneath the render amount, I'm going to drop the size so they're actually something a little bit more reasonable. And also I'm going to increase the random size so that some of the embers are big and some of them are small. Not too small, but something, maybe make them a little bit even smaller still. I mean, I used a 0.01. But yeah, something like that. That should be good. Now, the cool thing is if we enable motion blur down here underneath the cycle's render settings, these embers will actually now look like real embers do. They have this little streak, like a motion trail behind them. And that's where it starts to look really cool. Yeah, before that, like I think with the old internal renderer, if you rendered volumetrics, you couldn't have motion blur inside the volumetrics, so it was really limiting in like you couldn't do cool explosions, you couldn't do this ember stuff. So it's cool that Cycles is like gradually getting there. The last piece we have to do though is the GPU. Once that's done, then we can really have some fun with fire. Now, one other thing we're going to do as well, just for the sake of it, and so that when we add in a scene it actually works, is add in a lamp. So even though this, because the thing is even though, yeah, as I was saying, even though we've given this a multiply value of 20, I find like if you increase this like higher so that it actually affects the rest of the scene, then this white will just become like way too blinding. So like the higher you increase this to, you can see like the less of the detail of the fire you can see. Like it's just become like one big white blob. But we would like it to have more of an impact on the scene around it, because if you add in a plane, if we drag this in here and then just drop that underneath it, let's delete that lamp, the lamp just for now, just so you can see how it affects it. You can see that the fire does light up its surroundings a little bit, but not enough. Like a fire should really be coating everything around it in this sort of a warm glow. Like it's pretty bright, right? So so what we're doing is we're just adding in a lamp down here, which is just, it's faking it. Like it's not going to be flickering with the rest of the light of the fire as well, so it's not as good. But it's just going to give it just a little bit of a push above the standard, so you can see the glow of it should now be a little bit more out there. Like it should glow a little more. Hang on, why is that not glowing as much? Let's go 200. Oh, also we can go ahead and change the background to be black. That probably helps. And there we go. So now it's got a little bit of an orange glow to it. Hang on a minute. I feel like it should be even more than that. Oh, I know why. I think I know why. I can see the shadow from the actual plane. Let's increase let's bring it up a little bit. There we go. Now the fire is actually showing through like it should. So let's drop that to, I don't know, like 100. Good, good, good. And maybe with this material here for the actual the smoke thing, maybe we can make it so that it doesn't actually render any shadows. Cast shadows. Ray visibility. Shadow. All right, let's try that. Hey, that worked immediately. I didn't expect that to work so well. So now it's not, yeah, it's not casting a shadow. So that's good. That's problem solved. All right, so look at that. We've now got some awesome looking fire. Ta-da! And that's how you do it. That's how you get great looking fire with embers added, and it looks pretty good. What I'll do now, just really quickly, for this last little piece, and before my computer completely collapses from all of this stuff here, I'm going to add in something which you can download. I'll put this on Blender Guru so you can get it. Is just a pile of sticks right here, because that is what the tutorial is really about. It's about, you know, making a campfire, isn't it? So, what is the size of this in real meters, in metric? Let's see what it is. Okay, so the size of that's 2 meters. That is a pretty big fire. Okay, so we'll scale that down so it's directly underneath the fire there. Now, if you wanted this to be like a physically accurate fire, what you would do is each one of these sticks, and I'll show you, you can do it right now. You can follow along with me. Is you enable smoke, and then enable flow, and that's basically it. You set the surface to 1 so that the fire actually hugs the surface of the sticks a little bit more. You want to give it a texture, give it the same texture that we had on it before as well, and it seems to already have an animation on that offset, doesn't it? Okay, let's try 10. No, the end of frame. Okay, delete that key. I think there's already a keyframe on that because when I added the I used these sticks in a previous scene, so I think it's using that old animation. And then I'll set that to 0. Okay, so now that should be flickering a fair bit, maybe too much. So from frame 0 to 100, we want the offset to be like 5. Okay, so once you've done one stick, all you need to do is select the sticks which you're going to be burning. And this is important when you're making a campfire. You don't want all of them. Like, not every stick in the fire is burning. Let's have a look at the reference photo again. You can see this stick up here, this main one, that's not burning, that's sizzling. It's got a little bit of smoke coming off it, so you could use the smoke emitter instead of fire. And it's basically the ones at the bottom, the ones that are like deep in it, those are the ones that are burning. Like they've now, because when I don't know if you've ever had a campfire before. If you have a social life, no. I don't know if you've ever been to a campfire or seen one in real life, but there's a lot of sizzling when you turn on. A lot of the fresh wood that's still wet, and it's you need to use a lot of like newspaper and tree bark and leaves and all sorts of stuff just to start the thing. And then as the fire, like as the wood cooks and dehydrates, then it actually starts to burn. So these ones at the top, these won't start burning until they've broken and fallen into the bottom part down there. So these are all the sticks down here, and these are the ones that are going to be burning. So, wow, I found that with pure luck. You want to select basically the one with all your settings on it that you want to copy. Make sure it's set to fire. That was important. You got to check that. And then hit Control L, modifiers. So now every single one of these have the exact same settings. And also, once you've done that, you want to go ahead and hide all of those. And then the rest of these ones up here, we can give them smoke collision. And these can just be, just collision ones. Or if you want, you can have them sizzling as smoke instead. So you could have them just like that. You don't really need a bit of a texture on those. Those can just be just sizzling away a little bit. Let's give them a little bit less density than the full-on smoke that usually comes out of them. And so Control L, modifiers. And if you want anything to be like a collision, then you just, let's say you want this one, let's say this one up here, that one's probably not going to be sizzling. You just give it collision like that. Maybe a couple of those can be collision. They're not all smoke emitting. That one can be a collision as well. Yeah, you get the gist of it. So that's basically that. and then you drag that over so that it's on the exact same layer as everything else. And we can now probably shrink down the size of this. Whoops, let's do that in edit mode. It gets funny when you scale things in object mode for Smoke Simulator. It messes things up. I remember when I did my first Smoke Sim years ago on that big, I bit off way more than I could chew for that first Smoke Simulator tutorial I did for the Burning City. Yeah, I had problems where I accidentally scaled up the cube, and then in the final render, I had this horrible like blotchiness. I can't remember. It was like sort of like repeating the fire in itself, and I realized it's because you scale the cube. So it has to be in edit mode like this when you do any shaping of the actual domain cube, and you'll avoid that problem. All right, but once you've done that, then save it. Very important. Free all bakes, and then go ahead and bake the dynamics. And this should now go ahead and bake all of that with that lovely fire. So let's pause it and see how it goes. All right, there we go. Look at our fire burn. That's a fire with character. So that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, this could be improved with obviously higher resolution of a bake, you know, getting it up to 128. I haven't got that many hours though. So, but you get the gist of it. You can also improve things as well. This is another little tip here I'll just throw in here. If you use a texture, and then just, you know, just like what we did before, give it like a cloud texture, and then use a value of like 1, like that, contrast it, whatever. This will actually affect the smoke, so that you could then place an animation, you know, frame 1, and then at frame 100, make it move like this way. And then what you'll actually get when you do that is the smoke will actually, it'll appear as though there's like wind in the actual smoke. And that's what I did for my my final animation as well. And yeah, when you render it, you'll get something that looks like this. And that's it. That is fire in a nutshell. So placing this in a scene, the scene is up to you. Whatever scene you put it in. The scene I put it in was this very complex looking forest campfire scene here. And I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to create this grass in the next tutorial. So in this grass, I used a product which I haven't really used in any tutorial before, but it's using the Grass Essentials Pack, which is something that the team at Blender Guru has been working on for the last few months, and it allows you to finally create realistic looking grass like this with ease. So that's all I'll say about it, but there will be a tutorial on how to create this scene, this grassy sort of meadow. We're going to go for a morning time scene, so I'll be doing a tutorial on that one next, so look out for that. But that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this fire tutorial. Look forward to seeing anything cool that you make with it. So thanks very much for watching. Bye.